What the heck is a financial snapshot? Well, we're going to get into it. Essentially, it is a single page that tells you where all your money is coming from, where it's going to, what you have, and what you owe. It's a snapshot. It is a picture in time of your financial life. And the reason it's important is because that is gathering information like a pause rep that tells you where you are so that you can decide where to go and what decisions to make. It really, really simplifies the decision making process of what to do with your finances. So let's get into it so you can understand what I'm talking about. Here it is on the right hand side, financial snapshot. This is a very simple white feather one pager. Remember, I'm a Marine, which means I like things simple. Whatever we do, no matter how much money you make or how many businesses you launch or whatever, the more you can simplify things, in my opinion, the better it is and the easier it is to manage. So I keep things extremely simple. And that's what you're going to see throughout this whole boot camp and in this community. The tools that we make, the pages that we use, the documents that we use, everything is as simple as possible because that's what makes it executable. People, when they're confused, they do not take action. When you're confused, you get scared and you do not take action. So we try to simplify things as much as possible so that you can then execute because it's that execution that creates financial freedom, not knowledge. All the knowledge in the world will not help you if you don't take action. Okay, so that's why you see a lot of the simplistic sort of documents and forms is because it's meant to do a job and help you take action as opposed to confuse you. So let's get into it. Income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. Start at the top and you have annual income. Then you go down and you have annual expenses. If you subtract your expenses from your income, then you get your net income for the year. So if you make $50,000 of total annual income and you spend 45,000 total, then at the end of the year you should have $5,000 in the bank. Does that make sense? Balance sheet is assets and liabilities. Assets are things that you have that are worth value. It could be a bike, it could be a house, it could be, if it's a rare breed, a dog. Anything that you can potentially sell to make money is an asset. Anything on the right hand side that you owe money on is a liability. So if you have, for instance, a loan on your car, the loan itself is a liability. Another way it's put, and I like the way that Robert Kiyosaki talks about this, is he says, an asset is something that brings money into your life, and liability is something that takes money out of your life. All right, that's a pretty good way to look at it. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but again, whatever works for you. So let's talk about how you fill these out. I like to start with the income, then move to expenses, then move to assets, then move to liabilities. So let's start with the income stream on the first part of this. Determine your income streams. Well, if you're active duty, then your income is what you make on your leave and earnings statement, your LES. So just take a look at your LES or take a look at whatever earnings statement you get from your job and determine how much you make. If you get paid every 2 weeks, then determine every 2 weeks, then multiply by 2, and that gives you your monthly, and then multiply by 12, and that gives you annual. You want to consider your annual income and consider all sources of income. You may have a job, and that job gives you the W-2 income, but maybe you drive for Uber as well, and that's a side hustle. We'll get into that. Side hustles are the key to unlocking a rapid advancement toward financial freedom. Side hustles are amazing. So we'll talk about that. A huge portion of this bootcamp is about side hustles. But driving for Uber, that's a side hustle. Maybe you mow lawns. Maybe you have investments that give you passive income. Maybe you've lent money to somebody and they're making payments back to you. Take into account all the different sources of income and add them all in here. If you only have one source of income, fine, no problem, whatever. It doesn't matter where you start. Just put in there what the truth is. So annual income, you just put in there all of your income streams, job, Uber, working, mowing lawns, whatever. Add all of that up and multiply it by 12 to take your monthly and make it an annual income. You want one single number on this so that it's simple. Annual income total, $70,000, $20,000, $150,000, whatever it is, put it under the total. Then you want to figure out all of your expenses. And this is the tricky part because most people do not track their expenses. The vast majority of people do not track their expenses. You can do it a lot of different ways. You've got apps out there that can help you track income and expenses. There are multiple options in the supplementary materials and the homework. You're going to really want to dive into those because using an app to track your income and expenses, it simplifies so much. You should not be tracking these on a piece of paper or trying to keep them in your brain. Use an app. That app will organize things for you, but you want to identify your expenses. One of the easiest ways to do this is don't pay cash for anything. I know that's going to sound crazy, but from a tracking perspective, if you use a credit card or a debit card, then that creates an electronic copy of what it is that you spent money on. And then you can look at your statement at the end of the month and say, okay, this I spent money here, 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 here. And if you use one of those tracking apps, then it categorizes it all for you and makes it very, very simple. So you want to do that. Identify all the expenses you have in a given month. And then just for simplicity right now, just multiply that by 12 and that'll give you your annual expense. But what you'll find is that when you're doing this for a year from now, when you've tracked all 12 months, you can go back and look at what the average is. And that gives you a much clearer representation of what you spend every month. For right now, though, who cares? Just get your monthly total and multiply by 12 and stick that into annual expenses. And that is everything, guys, from groceries to utilities to gas to your car payment to your house payment to your rent to whatever, anything that you spend money on. Now, I'm not talking about investing. So if you put $50 a month toward investments, that's money that's being invested. It's not necessarily an expense. Now, you can count it as an expense if you choose. If it's on auto, if it's like an auto deposit and that is money that's technically going out of your checking account, then okay, you can consider it an expense. But it's not a true expense, if you know what I mean, because that money is not going away. Money you pay to rent, that money's gone. It's lost. As soon as you pay it to rent, it's done. But money that you invest in like the stock market or whatever, that's money that not necessarily is gone. It's sitting there in equity. So not to get too confusing, but just add up all of your expenses for the month, multiply by 12 and put it in the total. Then in order to get your net income for the year, you take your total annual income, subtract your total annual expenses, and that number hopefully is positive. If it's positive, it means that you've got a savings rate. So if you make $80,000 total across the year and you spend $75,000 total, then you should have $5,000 in the bank at the end of the year. Pretty simple. Just keep it simple like that. Then you want to determine your true assets. True assets. Now, what is an asset? It's something that has value, anything that has value. If you own a house, then just look on Zillow and see what the house is worth. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right now, we're not looking for perfection. All we're looking for is to get your financial snapshot started so you have an idea of where you're at. Don't focus on trying to be perfect. If you have a car, how much is that car worth? If you have a house, how much is that house worth? If you have a tractor or anything, literally anything that you have, look around your entire life and ask yourself what these things are worth. What do you own and what are they worth? Then you put in there the total value of that, not the value after the loan. If you have a car and it's worth $30,000 and you have a loan for $25,000, that asset value is not $5,000, it's $30,000. This is an important distinction. A lot of people screw this up. The asset value, the total asset value is what you want to put in there. So if you have a car that's worth 30 grand, put 30 grand next to a car. In assets, write car and then $30,000. House, $200,000. Bicycle, $300. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Just think of all, and this should be a fun game. This should be fun for you. Find out all the assets that you have and what their value is and list those in there. And then you should get a total asset value at the bottom. Just add them up. Then liabilities. Liabilities are anything that is debt related. So a mortgage. Let's say you have a house that's worth 200,000 and you owe 150,000 on it. That's where this goes in liabilities, 150,000. Your car worth 30,000, you owe 25,000. Okay, over here in the right side, you'll put car loan, 25,000. And then any other debt that you have, personal debt, credit card debt, whatever. All of this liabilities, this is all debt. So you put that in there. And then you take those two totals and then you subtract your debt from your assets. So if you have, for instance, a house that's worth 200,000, a car that's worth 30,000, a bicycle that's worth 1,000, then you have $231,000 worth of assets. But if you have loans on those that equal the exact same amount, then your net worth is zero. Does that make sense? You take your asset values and subtract your liabilities, and that's what gives you your net worth. Now, it's important to understand both of these because you're wanting to build both. Your net income over time, the whole idea, I'm going to give you the secret to being wealthy right now. Are you listening? The secret to being wealthy is to increase your income, decrease your expenses, increase your assets, decrease your liabilities. Because when you do that, your net income gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And once you get to a point where your net income for the year is high enough, then you're financially free. For instance, let's say that your annual income from the job that you're earning is $60,000 a year. And that's all the income that you have. And your expenses are $60,000 a year. So your job pays for all of your expenses and you don't have any savings per year. And then you're able to make side incomes. You're able to make investments. You're able to minimize your expenses. Maybe you take your expenses down from $60,000 to $40,000 a year. And you're able to create through side income and investment income $40,000 a year of income. $40,000 a year of passive income and $40,000 of expenses, then you can quit your job. Does that make sense? You're able to create enough income on the side to cover your expenses so that your net income is still a zero or a positive number. That will allow you to quit your job. And that can be the first step to living financially free. That's just one example of how increasing your income and decreasing your expenses can set you free. Same thing with assets and liabilities. You want to ultimately be building your net worth over time by investing in businesses or property or investments that grow over time. Because ultimately, in your net worth growing, that's how you build a legacy, a financial legacy. So just remember, if you forget everything else, increase your income, decrease your expenses, increase your assets, decrease your liabilities. That will build your net worth over time and build your net income over time. It's very important to pay attention to both because you can be building your net worth, but if you've got a negative net income, you may lose all your assets because you can't afford to pay your bills. But if you have a positive net income and your liabilities far outweigh your assets and you have a negative net worth, well, that's still a pretty tough situation too. So you want to make sure you track all of them. Does this make sense? I know I went over it pretty briefly, but this is a simplistic version of how you can create your financial snapshot. So as part of the homework, you are going to pull all of this information, fill it all into this spreadsheet, and then have your financial snapshot. And you'll need to update this. In my opinion, you should update it once a month. At least once a month, you should update this financial snapshot. Okay, let's get into the budget. Now, a budget is how you tell your money where to go. Most people, they not only don't have a budget, they also don't track their finances very well. So most people, and this is most people in America, by the way, most people in America do not track their finances very well, which is why the saying of, oh, you get to the end of the month and you've got more month than money, right? Or you're living paycheck to paycheck. The reason they say paycheck to paycheck is because they have to get that next paycheck in order to continue to survive because they have no savings rate. And the reason they don't is because they just don't track where their money goes. So first, you have to track 100% of your expenses. Like I said before, try not to use cash. And the reason is because cash doesn't leave an electronic trail. So if you use cash for everything, you won't have any idea what you spent that on unless you manually write it down or you have a photographic memory. But I would recommend trying not to use cash. Be extremely specific about your expenses. Don't just put groceries $500. Well, no, your groceries weren't $500. Were they $467 or were they $587? That makes a big difference because if you're missing that $87 every month, then it compounds over time, especially if you're missing it in a lot of different areas. So be extremely specific. and be brutally honest. You're going to have apps that are free oftentimes or very inexpensive that allow you to track what your expenses are, especially if you use your debit and credit card for all of your expenses. Now, when I'm saying use a credit card, I don't mean you carry a balance on the credit card. You want to pay your credit card off every single month because most of them are like 16 to 25% interest rates. It's insane. So you don't ever want to carry a balance on a credit card because the interest rates will eat you alive. But I use credit cards all the time. And the reason I do is because they have theft protection. They have, they're essentially giving you free money as long as you pay it off every month because you're not paying any interest on it. And it allows you to electronically track every single one of your expenses. And then you can use an app like Mint to categorize that so you can see exactly where all your money's going. So that's how you start your budget. You track 100% of your expenses. You put those expenses into categories: housing, food, medical, entertainment, personal care, clothing, so on. You just categorize those. That way you can tell yourself, okay, I have this much of my money, this percentage of my money every month is going toward eating out. Is that, and when I'm looking to minimize my expenses, like I told you before, you're going to want to target certain areas that are the easiest low-hanging fruit. And eating out is one of the big ones. Eating out and partying. those primarily are the ones that we don't track and that we spend a ton of money on. And they're typically the easiest ones to cut out when it comes to being able to save money. Because there's a couple of different ways that you can increase your savings. You can increase the income that comes in, or you can decrease the expenses. Increasing the income is awesome, and that's ultimately where you want to go, but it takes a little longer to bring in extra income than it does to cut expenses. You can cut expenses right now. So that's why I say put those expenses into categories so you can determine which of those categories you can trim down on and increase your savings rate. That'll allow you to create this snowball effect of being able to increase your savings, take those savings and invest, take the money from those investments to increase savings even more, invest more, savings more, invest more, and then boom, all of a sudden you're on your way to financial freedom. You got to determine your savings goal. That's key, because without a goal, you have nowhere to shoot for. So whether it's small, maybe it's $200 a month of savings, because right now you're not saving anything or you're negative. And you want to increase that to $200 a month of savings. Or maybe you're in a position where you're like, you know what, I want to save $3,000 a month because I want to be able to build toward investing. And you'll see in future videos, when we do the financial freedom blueprint, your savings rate is going to directly correlate to how much you can invest and how quickly you get to financial freedom. So that's why it's important to determine your savings goal. And then you want to set and enforce your budget. Use the budgeting tools. And I'm giving you sort of overarching guidance right now. You want to use the budgeting tools, but you have to set what budget you have. So let's just say you make $4,000 a month. Let's say you make $4,000 a month of income, and you want to save $500 a month. Well, okay. So then if you make $4,000 a month and you want to save $500 a month, you can only spend $3,500. That's your budget. Your savings goal is $500. Your overall income is $4,000. Your savings goal is $500. So you can only spend $3,500. That's your budget. Set it and enforce it. You've got $3,500 to spend. X amount goes toward housing. X amount goes toward your cell phone and your car payment, medical and dental, and so on. All of those necessities come out first, and then you have a certain amount left over afterward for all of your entertainment, your clothing, your eating out, your Netflix subscription, what have you. All of those things, those, I would say, fun entertainment type expenses, those are the ones that really, that's your bread and butter. That's where you can increase your savings the easiest. Okay. So track 100% of your expenses, put them into categories so that you can see where all the money's going, determine how much savings you want to have, and then set and enforce your budget. The homework is going to take you through this. So before we get into the credit report, it would be a good idea, in my opinion, to go use the tools, familiarize yourselves with the tools, and then execute the homework so that you can have a budget as we go into the next video, which is going to explain everything that you could ever want to know about your credit report.